Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya Bula. I'm a graduate student here at Indiana University, and I'm also one of the directors of the Inlight Film Festival. So first of all, on behalf of the Inlight Film Festival team, I'm pleased to welcome you here tonight. It's a pleasure to have you all here the day that the new season of House of Cards was released. It's great to see this room full of people because we put months and weeks of work into this festival. So make sure to grab a program and join us for the other 2 days of screenings and events. And I have a great pleasure to introduce today the Russian Woodpecker, the film that was filmed in my own country, Ukraine, and that highlights the events that are very close to me and my heart. I myself remember the Chernobyl disaster. I was 4 months and 6 days old. But I remember it through the story of my grandma. She was in Kiev and she was doing something on the balcony that April day, and she accidentally overheard the conversation of 2 men. In low voices, they were discussing the explosion of the Chernobyl nuclear plant. By the end of the day, she convinced my family to leave Kiev for at least a week. The official statement was made 2 weeks after. I remember Chernobyl through the memories about the girl in my class. She was the only one who got free lunches in our canteen, and she was labeled as Chernobylsk because her family was displaced from the Chernobyl zone. I also remember it through the green paper card that I received one day in my middle school. It assigned me a status of a victim of the Chernobyl disaster, category 4. Apparently because I was growing up in Kiev, in Ukraine, I was exposed to the radioactive pollution. And I think I will speak for many Ukrainians when I say that 30 years that came after the disaster, they became an organic part of our life. It's in the jokes about the oversized vegetables. It's in tourist photos from Pripyat. It's in the routine medical records that we all have. It is so embedded in our lives that we rarely question, so what was it? And why did it happen? The film that you are about to see tonight is the story about a very eccentric and curious artist, Fedor, who takes these questions and starts asking even more. And as he investigates the mystery of the Chernobyl, as the secrecy of the Russian Woodpecker radio signal, as he unfolds his own theory of what happened that time, he walks you through the ghosts of the Soviet past, through the shadows of the Cold War, and moreover, through the turbulence of present-day Ukraine. After this journey, I'm sure that you will have more questions than answers, so stay with us because we are pleased to have film director Chad Gracia and film cinematographer Artem Ryzhikov tonight with us. So after the screening, we'll have a chance to have a Q&A session with them. And we also want to thank the Russian and East European Institute for the generous support of this screening. And please turn off your phones and let's enjoy the movie.
So when I started this project, I had no idea how complex, how controversial almost everything is that's connected with Ukraine. I thought of it as one of the safest and most sort of delightful, simple places, simple in a good way. But the more that I started to dig, the more I realized that almost everything you touch, whether it has to do with Ukrainian history, whether it has to do with Russia and Ukraine relations, Soviet history, Nazism, Germany, nuclear power, even radars. A lot of times people at these Q&As bring up that we lived, and we still live, in a massive network of all sorts of radars. What I decided to do to make the film sort of focused is to keep my eye trained on one thing, and that was the journey of Fyodor's soul from a 4-year-old irradiated boy to the young man who goes up on the stage. So all these other questions I didn't have time or really the ability to explore. But for me, the film, we struggled for a long time because we had a lot of material, a lot of different films. We had Fyodor's dream investigation, which we have just a few moments left in the film of that, maybe 3-4 minutes. We had the history of Ukraine, we had the revolution, we had the radar. And it was a big mess. It was very hard to edit it together into one simple, unified story. But when I decided to focus only and exclusively on Fyodor's journey and only keep information, historical information, or even the radar information, if it helped us understand Fyodor, then the story crystallized and coalesced. So we were ruthless in focusing on just that. So I don't have a lot to say about anything beyond Fyodor's story.
Did you ever get the sense when you were speaking to people about the events that they were giving you a sensationalist kind of story, that they were trying to sell you something flashy rather than something that was really the truth?
No. In fact, on the contrary, many people tried to sell us something decidedly unflashy, whether that was Stalin or whether it was the idea that the radar never worked, that it was, basically that we were barking up the wrong tree, that it didn't create the woodpecker signal. In general, people didn't oversell the story. We had to drag it out of them, or pull it out of them.
Well, earlier today during the workshop, Chad also talked a lot about the interview technique that you had, that Chad was actually hiding during the interviews with these Soviet generals. Can you?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, I was very naive. I thought, this is going to be so easy. In fact, the plan was to make a 5-minute, it's my first film, and I thought, I have a small budget, a couple $1,000, we'll make a 5-minute piece, we'll put it up on YouTube. And the goal was going to be to debunk the American myths as to what this radar did. Basically say, it wasn't a device to turn people into zombies, it was just a ABC. We didn't know what it was at the time. But when we started, so I set up a list of people that I wanted to interview, engineers, scientists, Soviet radar specialists, and Fyodor, when we met for our first sort of planning session, Fyodor looked at me and said, naive American friend, this will never work. These people are going to lie to us, they're going to mislead us, it's going to be a huge waste of time. He said, the only way to find out the truth is by reenacting my dreams. Because in my dreams I've been fighting, and these ghosts, he always said, the ghosts of the Soviet Union. And I just thought that he was eccentric. I didn't see any of these ghosts. I thought that he was exaggerating. I thought they were long dead. But he wanted to reenact these dreams. And I thought it was a waste of time and it was ridiculous, but we made an agreement, a deal. I would film his dreams and he would come and do the interviews. And so we had a parallel investigation for the first few months. But very quickly, I saw some value in his dreams because they give us an insight into his unconscious, we can say. And he started to see value in the investigations. But the first investigations, when I would show up, it didn't go anywhere. As you saw, that people would say, what do you want to know about the antenna? It hummed in the wind. Ooh, that's all we got. Or it never worked. So then we decided we need a different approach. We got a special apartment with a cubby that I could hide in. And behind there, I was able with Skype to send questions to the team. We translated everything into Ukrainian. They never knew that there was an American involved. And at that point, slowly they started to open up. And we started to put together some of the mystery.
How did you initially come in contact with Fyodor?
Yes, so I was in Kiev working on a play. I was producing a normal play based on Anna Karenina. And Fyodor was our designer, our set designer, light designer, costume designer. And every time there was a little break between rehearsals, he would pull me aside and say, I found a Russian woodpecker. There's a Russian woodpecker. A Russian woodpecker. We gotta go check it out. And my Russian's okay, but it's not perfect. I didn't know what he was talking about for the first 2 weeks. Then I thought he wanted to take me to an aviary or a zoo or make some sort of nature documentary. Finally, after about a month of Fyodor pestering me about this Russian woodpecker, I did a Google search and I found those archival BBC, CNN pieces that are in the film, where in America people thought that it was a mind control device. And I thought, this is insane. I've never heard of this. How could there have been this big, it was in the news. It was turned on in 1976 on July 4th, our bicentennial. But I had never heard of it. So I thought, this would be a nice project. That's when I came back and Fyodor said, I borrowed a camera from a friend and I borrowed a friend. We showed up in Kiev, and we had our plan for 1 week. And Fyodor said, I brought a friend. I hope you can join us. His name's Artyom, and he's not bad with a camera. And I was, oh, good Lord. I have to take this extra guy around. I'm going to have to feed him bologna sandwiches. Then I learned he's a vegetarian, so I couldn't even feed him bologna sandwiches. I couldn't find vegetables, and I had to find room for him in the car. I just thought it was going to be a big hassle. But it turned out to be the greatest blessing that ever happened to the film, because Artyom was not only was he able to create extraordinary compositions and great camera work, but he's as crazy as Fyodor. And he would go and he not only would shoot people with secret cameras when it was extremely dangerous to do so, he's the one who climbed up the antenna to get those shots. He's the one that went into the secret cities. He's the one that really put his life on the line. Obviously, literally put his life on the line in the battle scene. So that was the first of many sort of serendipitous additions to the crew, from just me and Fyodor. By the end, we had a feature-length film, and we had a pretty sizable team of really talented people.
Good job. Yeah, I wanted to follow up on those moments when the film kind of shifts from Fyodor's voice to Artyom's voice, which I thought were some amazing moments. And so I was wondering, Artyom, could you talk a little bit about your role in the film and what you thought about kind of using the hidden camera and how that felt at the time, and then your thoughts on it now?
Those are good questions.
Yeah. Okay, I met Fyodor around 10 years ago, and he was a teacher in university, and I was a student, and we worked with him very close and shooted around 10 short movies, and we have a lot of ideas to make something new, and we heard a lot about Russian Woodpecker, but our Ukrainian government did not support us. So we were very lucky to involve Czech. For special equipment, I don't know how to say. First of all, it have to be very small and cheap, because if you in cinematographer in documentary way, it's like a spy. Yes, because you never expect how it will be, what you want in the future. It's not to write a script, just play it by ear. So it's very simple, small camera, like photo camera, Canon 5D, and for secret footages, it's GoPro. How to hide in?
It's like continuation of the workshop we had.
Yes. Sometimes I'm dressed costume like I'm a punk with 10 different holes, big holes, and everybody knew that it's not as strange that man with a hole, but in each hole I have a few cameras.
I mean, I could speak a little bit about the idea. You know, for me, the film was going to be very simple. In the beginning, it was going to be the sort of, as I said, debunking these myths. And then I started to think that the story of Fyodor's journey would be quite interesting. But then Fyodor turned against the project. As you saw, he tried to destroy the footage, tried to delete everything that we had filmed. He stopped talking to me, and he fled the country. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? I don't have a film. And at that point, Artyom said, you know, I'll go to Moscow. I will go and confront the family of Shamshin. I'll go to the archives in Moscow and try to find the documents that we need. And he did it. He said it very humbly, but I realized in the back of my mind, dramaturgically, that really what's happening is that the torch is being passed to Artyom. So for a few months, we had a cut of the film where Fyodor leaves the scene, and Artyom picks up and carries us to the end. And I thought, you know, it didn't really work. Actually, it just didn't work, because even though I introduced Artyom earlier in the film, people really wanted to stick with Fyodor. So I was very pleased when Fyodor called me after about 2 months and said, I decided to come back. And it was right when the revolution was really heating up. So I flew in, and we bumped into each other, and then at the end of the movie, you see Fyodor goes up on the stage. But it raises an interesting point, and that is that as an editor, I could have really painted Fyodor in almost any way. I could have painted him as a coward, by ending the movie when he left, or I could paint him in a more positive light, which I thought was accurate and also more interesting. But there was a cut of the movie, and I think, as I said, Artyom really is a hero. But in the end, unfortunately, sorry for Artyom, but it was Fyodor's movie. And a little thing about the secret camera footage. I mean, obviously there's technical questions, but there's also ethical questions, and we struggled with those all along. Now, Fyodor didn't see the film until opening night. We opened in Sundance last year. Fyodor, I told him about half hour before, I said, something that you should know, we were filming you with a secret camera, and I gotta run. That's kind of what I did. And, he was sitting in the front row, the audience seemed to like it, and the first question was to Fyodor about that. And he said, I really thought I was going to be the hero of this film, but now I realize Chad made me the hero and the anti-hero, so it's twice as good for me. So he really embraced it, and he also told me later, that's accurate, that I wasn't the easiest person to work with, and I was fighting, the ghosts of the Soviet Union were in him. That's really where the battle took place. So with Fyodor, we got his permission to use that secret camera footage. Fyodor has terrible vision, so he didn't see that Artyom was filming him, and Artyom's always got a camera around him, not now, that I see. And I also talked to Fyodor, and I said, someone asked, don't you feel bad? And I discovered later that Fyodor said, you know what, don't feel bad, Chad. I was filming you with a secret camera at that same time. And then we learned later that Artyom was filming both of us with a secret camera. So there was this moment where we had this really kind of radioactive triangle of paranoia. I can coin a strange phrase. But we were really distrusting each other. We were really terrified of each other. We didn't know. Fyodor was told that I worked for the CIA. I didn't understand why he was trying to destroy our footage. I didn't know if Artyom, there was cameras in my kitchen. At one point, Fyodor came over and said, the KGB is tapping everything. I know, there are cameras everywhere. We looked at that footage the next day, and you see he's pointing all around, and he was right. There were cameras everywhere, but that's because we had placed them everywhere because we were trying to figure out what's going on. So the same, we had pushed to film the Soviet people with secret cameras, and then we were pushed to film ourselves. I think that's really interesting and important because it shows you what happens in this kind of society where people don't trust each other, where there's paranoia and there's this kind of surreal sense that truth is not it's not possible to find it, and you never really know what you can believe. So it kind of, what happened to us was a reflection of the theme of the film.
Yes, we can still take some questions. Yeah.
Okay, this is for Artyom. So how did you overcome the paranoia of Soviet ghosts, which we saw Fedor having issues with? I'm sorry about my pronunciation. But how did you deal with paranoia or fear?
I did not fight with Soviet Union.
Right, the fear, I guess fear Russian forces still persistent in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's the ghost. So many, nobody expect how much ghost in Ukraine now, and it's hard to say, but I think, and my friend think that it's became a big war very soon. So we waiting for war.
One thing that's interesting for me was when I first met Fyodor, anyone that would listen, he would tell, the Russians are coming. There's going to be blood. There's going to be an invasion. The Soviet Union is going to come back. And if we all thought that he's just, being a crazy Fyodor. And I learned that it was best to be skeptical of my skepticism about what Fyodor said, because at least when it came to this, I often described him as an over-the-horizon radar himself. Like all great artists, he can kind of see things, and he's sensitive to things like a radar before the rest of us. So Fyodor was able somehow to pick up on this long before it was real. And people often ask me, what do I think about his theory? And again, in the beginning, I was very skeptical. I said, Fyodor, come on, how can this be? One person to save his skin, his job, his life, maybe killed so many thousands. And he said, my naive American friend, in this part of the world, millions have been killed for much less. And then we started talking with people who were in charge of the investigation. We talked with everyone who played a significant role in researching the cause of the accident. And they all looked at me and said, there's something that's covered up. There's something that we don't know. We know that there was a phone call the night of the disaster. We know the transcript of that phone call was falsified. We don't know why it's still locked up in Moscow. We just don't know. Now, Fyodor took all these puzzle pieces and put them together into his version. And my goal with the film is that people, with the very beginning, Artyom says half the people think Fyodor is an idiot and half think that he's a genius. So I tried to balance it so that you have some evidence of both, but it's not something that the film directly tries to answer.
Here we have. Yeah.
Well, the parallels to Don Quixote are even in the credits for this in the trailer. So I guess my question there, you're clearly well aware of when the camera work shifts and when we go into Fyodor's dreams and when we're with Steve or camera. But I guess my question is, you keep referring to it as a film, and is it a film in the same sense that Don Quixote is a novel? And if so, are you Cervantes or who is Fyodor?
Whoa, what a great question.
How much of that was you and how much of that was
Okay. Well, the Don Quixote sort of motif was there from the beginning. I thought of him as Don Quixote. We even tried to get a horse that we were going to put him on. He was going to be Sancho, and we were going to film. I don't think I told you that was my plan, but we were going to put him on a little pony and have Fyodor on a dying horse and walk him through Chernobyl. We weren't able to do that for various reasons, but you're right that that's kind of an element in there. I tend to think Fyodor a little bit more as the holy fool, kind of this Russian character who is really crazy and creates this sort of fog of madness, but somehow there's a lantern, there's a spotlight of truth in there that you can just barely make out. But I also liked, and I played with the Don Quixote imagery. Who is Cervantes? I mean, I guess the director and the editor is the Cervantes character, but I was lucky enough to have a real live Don Quixote and Sancho Panza.
I know for my own interest, it's either very expensive or very hard to gain access to Pripyat. Did you go in with that telling them why we were coming? And
No,
do you think
no.
it would bar you from it knowing what you were investigating?
No, we had no. They would never, they said, you can come in, you can't go near the antenna, you can't, and then we got near the antenna, and they said, you can't touch the antenna. Artyom said, I have to pee, is there a tree somewhere? And he disappeared for an hour. And they were like, where's Artyom? I think he's peeing somewhere behind a tree. He zipped up there and shot all of our initial footage. Nobody there would have allowed us. And then when these two, Fyodor stripped down and got his torch out, I thought we were going to definitely be arrested. But we had several expensive bottles of vodka that we used as gifts, and that tended to open any doors that needed to be opened. And by the way, just as a little observation, Fyodor's costume of the plastic was inspired by the actual liquidators' uniforms they were given. They were plastic with little pieces of tinfoil stuck to them, and they were told this will protect you. So Fyodor was kind of inspired by that horrible vision of these totally unprotected young boys going to their deaths.
So we have time for 2 more questions, and that's going to be 2 last.
I was just wondering, where exactly were you filming with the water? Was that the same radioactive lake that he mentioned in the film that he was like submersing himself into? Or was that somewhere else?
Well, there's only one scene where there's only one lake. Yeah, that's the Kievskaya Moria, which is right up, that ends in a dam now, right in the north of Kiev. And when he was submersing himself, it's.
So it was like it was his art dream moments with the mask and whatnot?
Yeah, so when I met Fyodor, he said, okay, Chad, here's what we have to do to get to the truth. We must build a raft out of mirrors, and I must sail it on a radioactive sea. And I need a torch, and I should be naked. And I just thought, I was just calculating in my mind the budget for this, the insurance, what's going to happen, how are we going to find a radioactive sea? There's one right next door. How are we going to get this raft? I thought the raft would sink. I thought for sure this thing would just right to the bottom of the sea. But somehow it stayed afloat. But once we got Fyodor up on there, naked, he slipped. He cut his leg. There was blood gushing out. He was so angry. We cut the rope because he thought he was going to kill us. Me and Artyom were in the rowboat. I was rowing. I had a GoPro in my head. I had no idea what I got myself into. This was the first week or 2 of filming. Why am I out here in this freezing cold? Anyway. So, what was your question? Yes, same radioactive sea. It's not extremely radioactive.
Sam, do you have something to add to the filming process on the lake?
On the lake? It wasn't so difficult, but water so much.
Yeah, okay, hold on. It was terrifying. I'll tell you why. There was a giant whirlpool. I didn't know this. There was a dam. There are signs everywhere. Danger, 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 because it's sucking in millions of gallons of water to power Kiev. And as I'm rowing, I'm not a very good rower, we're getting sucked into this whirlpool. It's not that scary. It was terrifying. It would have been great if we had gotten that scene of us going down into the whirlpool, though.
I think we have the last one. Yeah.
And I have a double question. This is going to be quick. How did the historical situation in Kiev play into this movie? Because it sounds like you had an idea for a quick, short movie,
Yeah.
and then the history took over a little bit. Did it affect it? How was the experience, I guess?
Yeah, it totally dominated the narrative and the editing, because at first I thought there's no way I can connect these two. They aren't related. There's a radar that Americans thought was a zombification machine, and then there's a revolution. But when I listened closely to what Fyodor was saying, I realized two things. First, it does all fit into Fyodor's mindset, which is this paranoia, this fear that the Soviet Union is always there to cause suffering and trauma and blood in Ukraine. That's the way Fyodor interacts with the idea of the Soviet Union and Russia. So this was, for Fyodor, a physical manifestation of the same attitude that led to his grandparents being killed and sent to Gulag, his father being forced to rat out his family, his experience with Chernobyl, his son, who was threatened by the secret police in Ukraine. They said they were going to kill his son if he didn't stop the film. So all of this, for Fyodor, was of a piece. And then for me, dramaturgically, it allowed me to show Fyodor making a choice when he went up on that stage, because it was, now we know in retrospect that the government soon fell, but at the time we didn't. And it was a 5-year sentence for going up on that stage. And Fyodor actually went up on it. That's why when I say I could have shown him as a coward or a hero, I really think he was a great hero. It was very terrifying for him to do that. He risked a lot. So the revolution, not only it gave a physical manifestation for Fyodor's fears of these ghosts, but it also provided a stage upon which Fyodor could have this final battle with the demons inside of him.
Well, I think it's very fascinating because it does come true. That's why I was wondering. That fear is real. I grew up in Soviet Union. I lived through Chernobyl accident. I was in Kiev, so it is the fear is real, and I think the revolution in Ukraine when it was happening, it may have released some of them, and I think it's coming from this movie.
Yeah. No, thanks. Thanks a lot.
And this note.
Very quick, how did it feel for the Duga? That's correct. Как вы чувствовали?
Tell the truth.
Tell the truth,
It wasn't
please.
scary for him.
It was.
I went up a few meters
It's
and was
so
terrified.
beautiful. It's beautiful. The view is fascinating.
We went on Duga 2 times.
Okay.
One time it was Yanukovych time, and everything was very close, and many militaries went around Duga. So it was very hard to climb up, and one of soldiers came to us and
Soldier.
yes, and told that Chet will be deported outside of Ukraine if something happened, and you have only 1 hour to make interview with Fyodor near the Duga. So I put tripod and say, oh, I need to go somewhere. Yes, and it was very.
I would be deported, by the
Yeah.
way.
I'm make some footages and go down. Nobody knows what I did. And in a day after, I'm show some present for Chet. And after 1 year, it was our last in. We went to Duga again. Now it's open. Everybody who wants could go to Chernobyl zone and see Duga. Also, we have few problems with militaries, but our Ukrainian producer, they
Distracted.
distracted military and give some sandwiches. And, yes, we made footage with a drone. Our assistant cinematographer operate drone, and I'm flying on a Duga with Fedor's dress, and I have mobile phone, so we can speak what he see and what how I can act.
That's very brave, and I think on that note, we'll just give the closing round of applause, please.